My name is Giulia Moretti, and today, the men who try to steal my future are discovering that silence isn't a sign of weakness, it's the sound of a trap closing. They looked at my Italian passport and my soft smile and assumed I was a girl who could be easily confused by the fine print of London's property laws. They thought they were the kings of the concrete jungle, but they forgot that every jungle has a shadow, and in London, that shadow has a name. It is a dangerous thing to assume a woman is lost just because she isn't shouting. Sometimes, she is simply waiting for the man who loves her to turn the world upside down. They underestimated the quiet girl from Milan, but more importantly, they underestimated the reach of the man who stands beside her. I am an interior designer by trade, a dreamer by nature. I moved to London with a vision for light, space, and the kind of timeless elegance you only find in the hidden villas of Tuscany. For years, I worked in the shadows of larger firms, saving every pound, skipped every luxury, and worked through every holiday until I could finally invest in my own dream, a development project that would be my legacy. It was a beautiful, historic townhouse in the heart of Chelsea, a building with bones of iron and a soul that just needed a bit of grace to shine. I put everything I owned into that building. I took the risk that most people are too afraid to take. To handle the structural work, I partnered with Heritage Builders, a firm run by two men, Mark and Julian. On the surface, they were the quintessential London success story, men who wore bespoke Savile Row suits, drove Italian sports cars, and spoke with the polished authority of the elite. But beneath the expensive cologne and the charming smiles, they had the souls of common street thieves. They didn't see me as a partner, they saw me as a target. They saw a foreign woman with an eye for beauty but, in their minds, no stomach for the cold, hard reality of British business contracts and backroom deals. For 6 grueling months, I poured my soul into that house. I didn't just design the rooms, I lived in them. I hand-sourced the marble from the quarries of Carrara, traveling back to Italy to ensure every slab was flawless. I commissioned bespoke light fixtures from the finest glassblowers in Venice, ensuring that the light would hit the walls in just the right way. I spent my nights sketching layouts until my eyes burned and my days on the dusty construction site, wearing a hard hat over my silk scarf, ensuring every joint was tight and every timber was sustainable. I was there at 6 a.m., and I was often the last to leave, long after the workers had gone home to their families. As the project neared its stunning completion, the atmosphere in the Heritage Builders office began to shift. It started with small things. Mark and Julian began to misplace key documents. They stopped answering my emails regarding the final equity split. They held meetings without inviting me, and when I showed up anyway, they treated me with a patronizing air that made my skin crawl. Finally, they called me into their glass-walled office on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, the kind of London day where the sky is the color of lead and the air feels like a warning. "It's just business, Giulia," Mark said, leaning back in his leather chair with a smug, self-satisfied grin that didn't reach his eyes. He pushed a thick stack of papers across the desk, his gold watch glinting under the fluorescent lights. "You see, due to some unforeseen legal loopholes regarding the zoning and the way the initial holding company was structured, your investment has been diluted significantly. In fact, on paper, you no longer hold a controlling interest." Julian piped in, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "You're an artist, darling. You don't understand the complexities of London real estate or the way these high-tier contracts are engineered. You've done a lovely job with the curtains and the tiles, really, but the house belongs to the firm now. Just sign these release forms, take this small consultancy fee for your time, and go back to making things look pretty. Leave the big deals and the real ownership to the men who know how to play the game in this city." I looked at the papers. I looked at their mocking faces, seeing the greed reflecting in their eyes. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even argue. I realized in that moment that they had spent months planning this betrayal while I was busy building something of value. I simply stood up, picked up my handbag, and straightened my coat. I didn't sign a single page. I knew that when you are dealing with snakes, you don't try to reason with them, you find someone who knows how to crush them. Have you ever given your heart and soul to a project, only to have someone try to steal the credit and the profit just because they thought you were weak? Tell me in the comments how you found the strength to fight back. That night, I went home to Thomas Blackwell. To the world, Thomas is a quiet, legendary figure in the London financial district, a man who facilitates the city's most complex acquisitions and mergers. But in the circles that truly matter, he is known as the Ghost of the Thames. He is a British Mafia boss whose influence isn't measured in noise or headlines, but in the silent control of the capital's private debt, its property deeds, and its deepest secrets. Thomas is a man of few words, but when he speaks, the very foundations of the city seem to tremble. I sat with him in our private library, the fire crackling in the hearth and the scent of old leather and rain filling the room. I told him everything. I didn't ask for a favor, and I didn't ask him to break any laws. I simply told my partner about the injustice I had faced. Thomas didn't erupt in rage. He didn't pick up the phone to order a hit. He simply reached out, took my cold hand in his, and traced the lines of my palm with a thumb that felt like warm iron.
Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more revenge and love stories. Turn on the bell notification to stay updated.
Heritage Builders, he whispered, the name sounding like a death knell in the quiet room. They think they've been clever. They think they've found a loophole in your contract, Giulia. What they don't realize is that I own the very law firm they hire to draft those loopholes. And by the time the sun sets tomorrow, they will discover that it is very, very dangerous to try and steal from the woman I love. The next 48 hours were a symphony of invisible, overwhelming power. While Mark and Julian were likely popping champagne in some high-end club, celebrating their clever theft, Thomas was moving through the city's financial underbelly like a shadow. He didn't confront them. He didn't send men with guns to their doors. Instead, he used a series of offshore shell companies and private equity funds to buy up every single pound of debt that Heritage Builders owed. He bought their outstanding loans from the banks. He bought the leases on their construction equipment. He even bought the private debt of Mark and Julian themselves, their mortgages, their car leases, and their lines of credit. Finally, he bought the holding company that owned the Chelsea project itself. By midnight on Wednesday, Heritage Builders didn't just have a new landlord, they had a new owner who held their entire lives in his hand. On Thursday morning, Mark and Julian arrived at their office, preening like peacocks. They were dressed in their finest, expecting to sign the final sale papers for the Chelsea house to a mysterious anonymous international buyer for a massive payout. When they walked into their boardroom, they didn't find their lawyers or a nervous buyer. They found Thomas Blackwell sitting at the head of the table, his presence filling the room with a cold, suffocating authority. The color drained from Mark's face instantly. He knew who Thomas was. Every developer and shark in London knew that if Thomas Blackwell was in your boardroom, it wasn't a meeting, it was a sentencing. Mr. Blackwell, Julian stammered, his voice cracking like dry parchment. We weren't expecting you. We're just here to finalize a private sale for a property we recently acquired. The sale is already finalized, Thomas said, his voice as cold and unrelenting as the North Sea in winter. He didn't even look up from the folder he was reading. But there's been a significant change in the management structure of Heritage Builders. It seems your company was heavily leveraged, and every one of your creditors has seen fit to sell their positions to me. I now own 95% of your firm, your assets, and the debt on your personal homes. The two men stood there, paralyzed, as the reality of their situation sank in. They had tried to steal a house, and in response, they had lost their entire world. As the new majority owner, Thomas continued, finally looking up with eyes that held no mercy. I decided to appoint a new controlling partner to oversee all operations and property assets. Someone with a better eye for detail, and a much stronger sense of ethics than either of you. The heavy oak door opened behind them. I walked in, wearing a sharp, ivory silk suit that I had designed myself. It was the color of the marble I had sourced for the house they tried to steal. I took the seat directly next to Thomas, placing my leather portfolio on the table with a firm, decisive click. Giulia? Mark whispered, his eyes wide with a terror that made him look small and pathetic. What is this? What have you done? This is the big deal you mentioned, Mark, I said, my voice calm, melodic, and filled with the power of the man sitting beside me. I believe you said I should leave these things to the men who know how to play the game. It turns out I'm much better at it than you are. Because unlike you, I know that in London, your reputation is your only true asset. And yours is currently worth nothing. Thomas slid a new set of papers across the table, not release forms, but total termination contracts. You two are fired. Effective 30 seconds ago. You have 1 hour to clear out your desks under the supervision of my security team. Any attempt to remove company property, digital files, or even a single paperclip will be treated as a criminal act against my personal interests. And I assure you, you do not want to be a criminal in my city. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the sound of Julian's ragged breathing. The two men who had been so loud, so arrogant, and so cruel just 2 days ago were now trembling, their careers destroyed and their futures erased in a single stroke of a pen. They left the room like ghosts, their heads bowed in shame, knowing that they were lucky to be walking out with their lives. The townhouse is yours again, Giulia, he said softly, his voice a gentle contrast to the steel he had shown the developers. Everything they tried to take from you, and everything they spent their lives building, is now under your control. The project is fully funded, and the title is in your name. What will you do first? I looked at the mahogany walls of the office, the place where they had tried to strip me of my dignity. I think I'll start by redecorating this office, I said, a small, triumphant smile playing on my lips. I've always hated the oppressive color of these walls. I want them white, pure, clean, and ready for a new beginning where talent is respected and loyalty is rewarded. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more Mafia love and justice stories. Where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more revenge and love stories. Turn on the bell notification to stay updated.